What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today I learned something that just inflamed my anger to no end. My God, what are they doing? The divided Supreme Court rules in major homelessness case that outdoor sleeping bans are A-okay. Let me ask you a question, though. What are you supposed to do when Wall Street is buying up all the daggum houses and pricing people out of the market, and people are working full-time jobs and can't afford anywhere to stay? What are you supposed to do in that situation? Well, they're criminalizing sleeping outside. So you can't even afford to be homeless anymore. This is insane that these bastards made this decision. It's very, very, very upsetting. Let's dive into this article by Lindsay Whitehurst. All right, Washington AP. The Supreme Court cleared the way for cities to enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outside in public places on Friday, overturning a ruling from a California-based appeals court that found such laws amount to cruel and unusual punishment when shelter space is lacking. The case is the High Court's most significant ruling on the issue in decades and comes as a rising number of people in the U.S. are without a permanent place to live. Again, Wall Street is buying up all the damn houses. In a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, Republicans, the High Court found that outdoor sleeping bans don't violate the Eighth Amendment. Western cities had argued that the ruling made it harder to manage outdoor encampments in public spaces, but homeless advocates said punishing people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness. In California, which is home to 1/3 of the country's homeless population, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom said the decision gives state and local officials the authority to clear unsafe encampments from the streets while acting with compassion. This decision removes the legal ambiguities that have tied the hands of local officials for years, he said. Man, choke yourself. Justice Neil Gorsuch acknowledged those concerns in the opinion he wrote for the majority. Homelessness is complex. Its causes are many. So may be the public policy responses required to address it, he wrote. A handful of federal judges cannot begin to match the collective wisdom the American people possess in deciding how to best handle a pressing social question like homelessness. He suggested that people who have no choice but to sleep outdoors could raise that as a necessity defense if they are ticketed or otherwise punished for violating a camping ban. Homeless advocates, on the other hand, have said that allowing cities to punish people who have no other place to sleep would ultimately make the crisis worse. Cities had been allowed to regulate encampments under the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, but couldn't completely bar people from sleeping outdoors. Sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime, said Justice Sonia Sotomayor, reading from the bench a dissent joined by her liberal colleagues. Homelessness is a reality for so many Americans. Punishing people for something they can't control, like homelessness, is cruel and unusual, she said. She warned that striking down Eighth Amendment arguments against camping bans likely won't end the fights over the ordinances in court. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, a Democrat, criticized the majority ruling, saying cities shouldn't attempt to arrest their way out of the problem or hide the homelessness crisis in neighboring cities or in jail. The only way to truly address it, she said, is to connect people with housing and services. The case came from the rural Oregon town of Grants Pass, which appealed a ruling striking down local ordinances that fined people $295 for sleeping outside after tents began crowding public parks. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over the western states, has held since 2018 that such bans violate the Eighth Amendment in areas where there aren't enough shelter beds. Grants Pass Mayor Sarah Bristol told the Associated Press that the city will not immediately start enforcing those local ordinances, fining people for sleeping outside, and that the city council will need to review that decision to determine the next steps. This lawsuit was about whether cities have a right to enforce camping restrictions in public spaces, and I'm relieved that Grants Pass will be able to reclaim our city parks for recreation, said Bristol, who serves in a nonpartisan position. Homelessness is a complex issue, and our community has been trying to find solutions. Attorney Thean Evangelis, who represented Grants Pass before the High Court, applauded the ruling, saying the Ninth Circuit decision had tied the hands of local governments. Years from now, I hope that we look back on today's watershed ruling as the turning point in America's homelessness crisis. In Portland, meanwhile, a spokesperson for the mayor's office said the effect of the ruling would likely be muted since the state has separate legal limits on how cities can manage encampments. Seattle officials also expected a limited impact. An attorney for homeless people who live in Grants Pass bemoaned the decision. "We are disappointed that a majority of the court has decided that our Constitution allows the city to punish its homeless residents simply for sleeping outside with a blanket to survive the cold when there is nowhere else for them to go," said Ed Johnson, the director of litigation at the Oregon Law Center. Friday's ruling comes after homelessness in the United States grew a dramatic 12% last year to its highest reported level, as soaring rents and decline in coronavirus pandemic assistance combined to put housing out of the reach for more people. Why aren't they mentioning Wall Street buying up homes? More than 650,000 people are estimated to be homeless, the most since the country began using a yearly point-in-time survey in 2007. A lack of access to mental health and addiction resources can contribute to the crisis. Older adults, LGBTQ+ people, and people of color are disproportionately affected by homelessness, advocates said. Nearly half of the people without housing sleep outside, federal data shows. Derek Bellegarde, executive director of the nonprofit Chief Seattle Club, said some people may simply choose to sleep outside. Before his organization was started, members of the local Native American community weren't using shelters because they didn't feel safe in them or felt as though they belonged. "I think it's going to cause a lot of pain, a lot of misery to deny people the right to safety, to feel safe, to feel a sense of belonging. It's going to be devastating for a lot of people," said Bellegarde, a member of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. The Ninth Circuit decision had governed 9 states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. Again, this story came out a few days ago on Friday, and I cannot believe it. And how can you not mention that these big hedge funds are buying up massive amounts of property, not to mention the Airbnb market, and driving up the housing prices, which is causing folks to not be able to rent and buy a home. The amount of money that you have to make nowadays in order to afford a home is staggering. And we haven't even raised the minimum wage. What the are we doing? Hell in the handbasket, baby. That's where we're headed. This is wild that they would criminalize homelessness. I got one more point to make. Let's not forget the private prison industry complex, the ones that sit there and farm out prisoners to do essentially slave labor. Because remember, the 13th Amendment did not eliminate slavery. It legalized it if you break the law. And how do you break the law? Well, hell, if you can't afford a home, you're breaking the law. You might just get locked up for it. And if you get locked up for it, guess what? You too can work for any one of these major corporations that uses slave labor, like our favorite liberal coffee house, Starbucks. This is ridiculous. And I cannot believe how much we've been sold out. I do not look to elected leaders for saving. I don't. I look to my left. I look to my right. I look to my brothers and sisters, to my community. I look to the people around me that work for a living. It's going to be on us to fix this. Everybody else is bought off. All these politicians, they're all bought off. I mean, we might as well not even have a political process. It's just a facade. It's a show. It's a show that we're a part of, like the Howdy Doody show, or any kind of talk show that you could think of. It's Jerry Springer out here. Steve. It's ridiculous. I can't believe we're living in these days and times. I can only imagine what comes after November, because if you watch that debate, you already know things look sketchy as hell. We're a world embarrassment right now, and cats running around. Oh, 4th of July is this week. Yay. Anyway, my name's Eric. Remember that the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there can be no union without you and I front and center. Let's go. Peace.